Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, today we're getting right into something foundational. If you're thinking about helping people, the exploration stage. It's all based on Clara E. Hill's book, Helping Skills. You know, there's this old Yiddish proverb, when one pours out one's heart, one feels lighter. And honestly, that pretty much sums up what we're digging into today. Just think about this example, Colmapped. He'd moved to the U.S., felt totally alone, really wanted a friend, but didn't want to worry his parents back home. In his very first session, he admitted he felt he was going to burst from loneliness, the helper. They didn't jump in with advice, didn't try to fix it. They listened. Really listened, no judgment. They reflected back his feelings, the isolation, the sadness, rejection. And Coleman started crying, opened up about feeling like an outsider, as an immigrant. He just talked, and the helper let him. By the end, he said he felt much better, had a renewed energy to actually try making friends, even though he felt maybe a bit ashamed about crying. That simple act of being heard, truly understood. It was huge.
It really was. And Colmab's story, it's a perfect illustration of this exploration stage. It's not just casual conversation. It's where helpers deliberately, build that connection, that rapport, and actively encourage clients to talk about their deepest thoughts, their feelings. They do this through intense listening, empathy, and specific technique skills like restatements, reflecting feelings, asking those open questions. So for you, maybe you're a college student prepping for practice, or maybe you're just fascinated by how people connect. This deep dive, well, it's going to map out the theory behind it all and the practical goals, why it works.
Exactly. Our mission is to unpack the why. Why getting clients to open up is so critical, the psychological bedrock it rests on, and the actual skills you'll use. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, really, with Carl Rogers. His influence on how we think about human potential. It's profound. He had this fundamentally optimistic view, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He believed that all people have this innate potential for healthy and creative growth. It's a really hopeful foundation. And what's fascinating is how Rogers based his whole client-centered approach on phenomenology. Now, that sounds complicated, but
Yeah, what does that actually mean?
it basically just means he emphasized the subjective experience. Your reality, how you see things, your feelings, that's what matters most in understanding you. Rogers believed quite strongly that to truly get someone, you have to try and enter their private world, see things from their internal frame of reference, and crucially, suspend your own judgments.
So it's like trying to see through their eyes for a moment.
Precisely, without your own filters getting in the way.
In core to all this was his concept of self-actualization, right? This idea that we're all sort of programmed to grow towards our best selves.
Exactly. He saw it as an inherent blueprint, an inner drive pushing us towards fulfilling our unique potential. Like a plant naturally reaching for sunlight given the right conditions. He really believed in people's resilience, their capacity to grow.
Okay, so Rogers also talked about how personality develops, starting from infancy.
Yes, his theory of personality development. He started with infants having what he called an organismic valuing process. Think of it like a built-in compass for what feels good or bad for them. If something enhances their growth, like being fed or held, it feels good. If it hinders it, like pain or hunger, it feels bad. This internal guide helps them trust their own experiences, ideally leading towards that self-actualization.
So we start out with this pretty reliable internal guide, but then, well, life happens, right? This is where it gets tricky and where problems often start.
That's right. As children, we're completely dependent, and we have this fundamental need for unconditional positive regard. We need to feel loved, accepted, respected, just for being who we are, not because we met some standard.
But that's often not what happens, is it? Parents, teachers, society, they start imposing conditions of worth.
Exactly. Things like, I'll only love you if you're a good girl, or you need to be smart for me to approve of you. These messages start shaping us.
And we internalize them.
We do. Because children need that love so badly, they start to sacrifice their own organismic valuing process. They override their true feelings to get approval. Think about a kid who's told hating your sibling is bad. They might just sort of disown that feeling, pretend it's not there, instead of learning that the feeling is okay, but maybe acting on it hurtfully isn't. Or children shamed for crying might learn to repress dependency, maybe becoming fiercely independent later, but disconnected from their need for support. This creates what Rogers called incongruence, a gap between the real self, the organismic experience, and the self-concept shaped by these external conditions. It leads to feeling conflicted, maybe empty, phony, not genuine.
Because they're not living from their authentic core anymore.
Precisely. They've lost touch with that internal compass.
So when there's that clash, that incongruence between our real self and the self we think we should be, Rogers said we feel threatened. Anxiety pops up.
Yes, anxiety is the signal, and that's when defenses come online to manage it. Rogers talked about two main ones.
Okay, what are they?
The first is perceptual distortion. This is where we kind of twist or misinterpret reality so it fits with how we already see ourselves. Like, an overweight man might genuinely see himself as average-sized, maybe telling himself he doesn't eat much, despite evidence to the contrary. His perception is altered to protect his self-concept.
Makes sense. And the second defense?
That's denial. Pretty straightforward, just refusing to acknowledge reality altogether if it challenges our self-image. Think of, say, a transgender woman facing unfair treatment at work. If she's internalized that anger is bad, she might deny feeling angry at her boss, maybe even blaming herself instead, to avoid confronting the reality of the mistreatment and her own valid feelings.
Wow. So these defenses protect us short-term, but long-term.
Long-term, relying on them heavily disconnects us from reality, makes us rigid, creates this big gap between the real and ideal self, leading to what Rogers called maladjustment. Things like depression, anxiety, just feeling fundamentally off.
It sounds like you can get pretty far from your true self. So how do we get back? How does Rogers' reintegration work?
Well, reintegration, according to Rogers, involves becoming aware of those experiences we've distorted or denied, allowing them back into our awareness accurately. This means reducing the power of those internalized conditions of worth, and that often happens by receiving unconditional positive regard from someone else.
So feeling truly accepted by another person helps us accept ourselves.
Exactly. When someone offers that genuine acceptance, warmth, and respect without conditions, those old rules lose their grip. We can start trusting our own organismic valuing process again, become more open to all our feelings and experiences.
And that's where therapy or a helping relationship comes in.
Yes, often that helping relationship provides the safety and the specific conditions needed to lower those defenses and start that journey back to the authentic self.
Okay, so Rogers didn't just theorize. He laid out specific ingredients needed for this change to happen in therapy. What were those conditions?
Right. He proposed 6 conditions he felt were necessary and sufficient for change. First, there needs to be psychological contact, basically, a real therapeutic connection. Second, the client needs to be in a state of incongruence, feeling vulnerable or anxious because of that gap we talked about. That's often the motivation for seeking help.
Okay.
Third, the helper must be congruent or genuine, real in the relationship, open to their own feelings, not putting on a professional mask.
So authenticity from the helper is key.
Crucial. Fourth, the helper has to feel unconditional positive regard for the client, valuing the person, all their feelings, without judgment. It's not about approving of actions, but accepting the person's inner world.
And fifth.
Fifth is empathy. And Rogers defined this really deeply. It's about entering the client's private world, really getting a feel for it, almost living in their life temporarily without judging, sensing feelings they might not even be fully aware of yet. It's active, not passive.
It sounds incredibly demanding for the helper.
It requires real thinking, sensitivity, deep understanding. And finally, the 6th condition, and this is vital, the client has to perceive the helper's genuineness, positive regard, and empathy. If the client doesn't feel it, it doesn't matter if the helper thinks they're providing it.
Wow. So it's the client's experience that ultimately counts.
Yeah.
Rogers seemed to really stress that this overall attitude of the helper was the most important thing, right? The foundation for the skills.
He did. But this leads to a really important point, and where Clara Hill, our source author, builds on Rogers, but also offers some important nuances.
Okay, so how does Hill see it? Is it just attitude, or are the skills important too?
Hill agrees the empathic stance is fundamental and that the client's experience is paramount. But she argues that you really can't separate the attitude from the skills. The skills are how you show the attitude.
So they're intertwined.
Exactly, you need both. Hill also adds other crucial elements like awareness, the helper's self-awareness, being present in the moment, and importantly, cultural awareness. And she emphasizes client involvement as key.
Any other differences from Rogers?
Well, Hill takes a slightly different view on human nature. Rogers believed people were inherently good, driven towards growth. Hill suggests development is more complex, influenced by temperament, genetics, environment, early experiences. Not necessarily inherently good, but shaped. And critically for today, Hill stresses that having real multicultural awareness is important to genuinely being Rogerian. You have to understand diverse experiences to truly offer that empathy and positive regard effectively.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So bringing all this theory down to earth.
Hmm.
What does it mean for you, the helper in training, in an actual session? What are the practical goals of this exploration stage?
Okay, so practically in this stage, we're aiming for several key things. First, establishing that solid rapport and therapeutic relationship. Second, really mastering attending and listening. Third, helping clients explore their thoughts and how they narrate their lives. Fourth, encouraging the expression and experiencing of feelings. And fifth, simply learning about the client, their world, their strengths, their challenges.
Let's break those down. Goal 1, establishing rapport and a therapeutic relationship. This is about creating that safe atmosphere, right? Where clients feel understood and respected enough to open up.
Precisely. The goal is to try and understand them from their frame of reference. That phrase, walk a mile in the client's shoes, really captures it. Seeing the world through their lens without imposing our own.
You know, something students often worry about is, what if I just don't like my client?
Right, it's a common concern. But Hill makes a great point. The goal isn't friendship liking. It's about understanding, assisting, finding compassion for the human being underneath whatever presentation they bring. Like that example of the helper with incarcerated women finding common ground in basic human desires, like wanting to be loved or hurting when rejected, allowed for compassion even when the helper didn't condone their past actions.
This is about finding that shared humanity.
Exactly. And remember, relationship building isn't just a phase one thing, it's ongoing. And ruptures, misunderstandings, tensions, they happen.
That sounds stressful.
It can be. But the research actually shows relationships often end up stronger after a rupture is worked through and repaired. It builds trust.
Okay, moving on. Goal 2, attending and listening. This seems like the bedrock.
It absolutely is. It's the main way we build rapport. It involves all those nonverbals, eye contact, head nods, body language that says, I'm here, I'm focused on you.
It's more than just not talking.
Oh, much more. It's about listening intently, trying to hear everything, observing their reactions, and also, crucially, monitoring your own internal reactions. Is this my stuff, or is this something about the client's experience I'm picking up on?
Got it. Then goal 3, helping clients explore thoughts and narratives. You mentioned Frank and Frank's quote, "How can I know what I think until I have heard what I have to say?" It highlights the power of just verbalizing things, putting thoughts into words.
Yes, it helps clients hear themselves, maybe notice inconsistencies or patterns for the first time. It sets the stage for later work, potentially rewriting parts of their life story that aren't serving them well.
And then, maybe the deepest part. Goal 4, encouraging expressions and experiencing of feelings.
Emotions are absolutely key. They're fundamental to our experience, deeply linked to our thoughts and actions. You could almost define mental health as being able to feel a full range of emotions and express them suitably.
But so many people learn to push feelings down, right? Because it wasn't safe or accepted when they were younger.
Exactly. They distort or deny them for survival. This can leave people feeling hollow or empty later on. Helping them access and name those feelings can be incredibly powerful.
It's like listening for the music behind the words, the emotional tone.
That's a great way to put it. And focusing on feelings in the present moment is often very effective. Even if the feeling is about a past event, exploring how it feels right now in the session can be more productive. Like Joel in the example, his session got more intense when he focused on the present feeling related to the past, not just retelling the story.
But sometimes feelings are really difficult. Shame, despair, maybe even suicidal thoughts. How do you handle inviting those out?
It's a delicate balance. You need to assertively create space, let them know it's okay to talk about anything, but without pushing or demanding. Respecting their boundaries is paramount while still gently inviting exploration.
Because getting those feelings out is important for change.
Research suggests that emotional arousal seems to be necessary for change. When clients can really connect with strong emotions in that safe space, it often fuels awareness and motivation to shift things in their lives.
So to tie this all together with some evidence, you mentioned a study.
Yes, Kuna and colleagues looked at something called innovative moments, or IMs, in emotion-focused therapy.
Innovative moments.
Mm-hmm.
What are those exactly?
Well, it comes from narrative theory, the idea that we change by changing the stories we tell about ourselves and our problems. An IM is basically a moment in therapy where the client says something new or different about their problem narrative. They identified 5 types: shifts in action, reflection, protest, reconceptualization, and actually performing change.
Okay. And what did the study find about exploration skills?
The key finding for us today is that exploration skills were used more frequently in the cases that had good outcomes, right across all phases of therapy.
So using these listening and reflecting skills matters.
Definitely. And importantly, those innovative moments, those client shifts, were more likely to happen after the helper used skills in the good outcome cases. It shows a direct link.
Interesting. Any other takeaways from that research?
Yeah, it also suggested that exploration and insight skills tended to lead to the somewhat easier types of IMs, like action, reflection, protest, especially earlier in therapy. It implies you need to build this foundation of basic shifts before the deeper ones, like fully reconceptualizing the problem, can happen later. It highlights how important it is to watch the immediate effects of what you do as a helper and be strategic.
That really brings it home. So wrapping up our deep dive today, it seems clear the exploration stage is absolutely crucial. It builds the relationship, gives clients that vital space to explore, and gives the helper the understanding needed to move forward.
That's right. And while Rogers saw exploration as potentially enough on its own, Hill really frames it as the essential first step that underpins everything else. And importantly, these skills aren't just for session one, you use them constantly throughout the entire helping journey.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder, thinking about everything we've covered. What do you think is the single most crucial element for success in this exploration stage? Is it the helper's genuine attitude, the strength of the relationship itself, the helper's own self-awareness, or maybe the client's willingness to dive in, something to mull over? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the exploration stage. We really hope this conversation has given you a clearer picture and some practical insights for your own path in helping others.